If you haven't heard the news yet, I'm not even going to be the one to break it to you. I'm going to let this man break it to you right now, right here on Roll Coverage, home of the press conference breakdown.
Hey, I thought it was all over.
Nope. They Roll Coverage. I'm sure you've all heard by now our decision to play Andy Dalton as we go into Las Vegas to play the Raiders. Sitting Bryce down here, after yesterday, just went home, watched the film, had some conversations with coaches, with Dan Brandt. So had to gather a lot of information through this morning and made that decision after looking at it that this is the best decision for our group, for our team going forward.
I disagree 100%. I think that playing Bryce throughout this entire year would be able to tell us truly if Bryce is the problem or if it's the team. Now, obviously, last year there was a lot of blame given to the head coach. So here, I'm not going to give it to Dave Canales. The offense is not working for some reason, and I truly believe that decision could be the quarterback. But if it is, I'd rather risk it and get the number 1 pick or maybe the number 2 pick as opposed to putting in Andy Dalton, who might be able to go out there and win 6-7 games. I 100% believe this decision was influenced by David Tepper. And if it wasn't, it's 100% this man trying to keep his job past this year, because I bet one of those meetings with David Tepper told him a certain win amount that he needed to keep his job. I personally thought it was 6. It's probably somewhere closer to 4 to 5, but there's no way you're going to get there with Bryce Young. Andy truly is the only option in his eyes, but hey, I guess Bryce is done here, and all that trade, DJ Moore, everything like that was for nothing. So, worst trade in NFL history.
Dave, how difficult is it to evaluate a roster when you guys are not moving the ball down the field, not just on offense, but the entire product?
Yeah, there's a lot of factors. We want to play more football. A lot of factors that go into it, for this decision, and ultimately just kind of lands on my shoulders to be able to make the best decision for our group, to give us our best chance to win this week. And we focus on the weeks, we focus on the challenge at hand, and we feel like Andy gives us our best chance to meet the challenge.
Dave Tepper saying in the past that he gets consulted on the big decisions. What was his role in this as you guys talked about?
I want to keep that private. What I would like to say, though, is this is something after I watched the film, I looked at it, had a thought, started working on talking to the guys that we make decisions with. Certainly a lot of parties involved there. And ultimately this comes on me, and my number 1 responsibility is to help the Panthers win. And so this move, I believe, puts us in the best chance to do that this week.
Okay, so with that, I can glean 2 nuggets from that response. One, the first one is that, yay, Dave drank water. He's not just going to sit up here licking his lips for 12 and a half minutes. He's going to be able to actually deliver some stuff. And I believe that was a subtle nod to, yeah, this was a Tepper decision. I think that was the, blink twice if you're in trouble. That was that moment where he was trying to tell everybody that this truly was a Tepper decision. The fact that he's obviously not telling us about it is indicative of what all head coaches would do. They're not going to discuss the private matters with the owner. But I believe that David Tepper asked him, who do you believe can help us win now? He said Andy Dalton. He said, so then why isn't he starting? And he basically gave Canales the push to get that done. Because as much as he wants to say that it was Brandt, Dan, and Dave making this decision, it wasn't. Owner has to have some sort of influence on it. As we've seen with this owner over the past 8 years or 9 years of him owning the team, he fired 2 of his soccer coaches in 2 years. He's not known for keeping coaches and being patient. So that's kind of odd as the owner, or former partial owner, I should say, minority owner, in fact, of the Steelers, who's only had like 3 or 4 coaches in like 60 years. So complete different philosophy from the good organization of the Steelers and then the Tepper-run organization of our Panthers.
What were you seeing out of Bryce that wasn't working or that led you to this decision?
I don't want to get into the specifics of it. These are private conversations that we have, in our meetings, and the different things. It's just it's a vulnerable state, and so I don't really want to get into too many of the specifics of it.
How much did David Tepper have a say in this? Did he talk to him before making the decision?
Again, I watched the film. I had a thought in mind. We all talked, and I had to make the best decision for the team.
Hey, I want you guys to remember this. It was apparently unanimous when David Tepper said that we wanted Bryce Young, but then he fires the 3 people that we know were vocal about wanting CJ Stroud. Frank Reich, Josh McCown, and Deuce Staley. So, yeah, it's going to be great, the things that are told to us, but there's very clearly a PR spin on everything that comes out of this organization, and that is because of one man and one man only, David Tepper.
Dave, you were brought here to be the head coach, the offensive coordinator, and part of your plan was to be the quarterback shepherd, essentially. How much of this, like you said, it falls on your shoulders, but how difficult of a decision was this for you and the start of your tenure here?
Yeah, I certainly take it personal, but this position that I'm in, this opportunity that I get is about building a culture, is about building a football team that plays with a certain play style, and that's my main focus. And above all is to help the Panthers win, and so that's what this decision was about.
Dave, when did you inform Bryce, and what was his reaction?
I talked to the quarterbacks both. I talked to Bryce and I talked to Andy, and then from there I let the team know and kind of talked to each of the guys. As I knew, I didn't want them to find out the wrong way, so we had a chance, to connect with everyone, and the conversations will be private.
Dave, obviously the franchise invested a lot to go up and get Bryce last year. Do you view this as something that could be permanent throughout the rest of the season, or just kind of a break and see where he's at later?
Right now we're focused on this week. We're focused on getting Andy ready to play the Raiders, and then we'll just take it like that. We'll attack the Raiders. We'll attack this week and get that mentality and the things that we're looking for. So
it's going to be interesting because, again, if this team goes out there and the team absolutely shits the bed again, but Andy Dalton is actually able to get a cohesive offense going, then we'll know it was Bryce. And obviously there will still be some blame given to the roster overall. But again, that was built by David Tepper, Scott Fitterer, and Dan Morgan, a.k.a. Scott Fitterer's assistant, essentially. His right-hand man, his entire tenure with our Carolina Panthers. We promoted from within for that GM position, which was a poor decision. We didn't want to pay a big-time GM like Adam Peters. We treated Reich so poorly that guys like Ben Johnson and Bobby Slowick didn't even want to take the position. So this is all the making and the machinations of every Tepper decision to this point. And to everybody that told me I didn't know what I was talking about, to everyone that told me I wasn't a fan of my Carolina Panthers because I saw the problems last year, just like I saw them this year, take these 2 fingers and shove them someplace.
Does Young still have the locker room?
Again, that's a loaded question right there. Our focus right now is just trying to make sure we fix the film from from yesterday, and then getting ready for the Raiders.
Did you speak with your leadership council before making this decision as well?
I did not.
You mentioned this sort of being a sensitive topic, and how did those discussions go when you're talking about the number 1 pick and what this could mean to his confidence and his career?
Yeah, it's a lot of those factors, and again, I hate to sound like a broken record. I owe it to all of the guys, the coaches, the staff, the players, everybody involved to be really critical about what we put on film, about what I'm seeing, and to make sure that I'm constantly making the best decision for the team every week. And it happens to be the quarterback position, and so it's loaded that way, but it's every position, and it's all the guys. And I was able to stand in front of the team and challenge all the guys that we all have to step up our passion for what we're doing to play with the play style that we're looking for.
Just yesterday, you were adamant that Bryce was the guy. He was the starter. Yeah. Less than 24 hours later, how do you come to terms with mentally making that decision and then presenting it to him?
Yeah, it was rough, but I had to watch the film. And at the time that I spoke to you all, I hadn't watched the film, so I just went home. I watched the film. I gathered the information and made the best decision for the team, especially for the offense of what's going to put us in our best place to be successful this week.
I understand the attacking each week one at a time. I do. But at the same time, I feel like we are treading water in a situation where we should just be able to stand up. Like, we're in the kiddie pool and we're barely staying afloat. We have looked not only barely like an NFL team, Bryce barely looked like a quarterback. He didn't look like he did at Alabama. but he also played with much better talent in Alabama, with a much better organizational structure, much more stable organization, and everything like that. And of course, Nick Saban at the head at that time, where then he comes to a dysfunctional organization ran by a meddling owner, and everything is in shambles. So I don't really see this team getting better until we start making really better decisions, like offense and defensive linemen, corners, stuff like that, instead of just going out and getting offensive weapons, thinking that weapons is the problem with Bryce. Bryce is the problem with Bryce. It's as simple as that.
Adam kind of had a little bit, after the sack by Bosa, Adam kind of had a moment on the sideline where he was pacing and kind of yelling, I guess. And he said that he went up and apologized to Bryce afterwards to let him know it wasn't about him. Deontay Johnson said that he wanted to uplift Bryce. When you see the veteran guys surround Bryce with that type of respect and I guess assurance, does that make the decision that much harder?
I expect the same support for Andy as we go into this week, for the guys to, be supportive and every day just to approach it with that kind of energy.
Wow, way to sidestep that. On a complete second note, though, Adam Thielen thought he could come to the Carolina Panthers to win a Super Bowl. So no offense, whatever Adam Thielen says at this point is irrelevant. Deontay Johnson was a guy that the Steelers literally wanted to get rid of, and we got for pennies. And now we're already starting to see the reason why. So I'm sorry, the offensive weapons out there just aren't that good. And no offense, Xavier's not going to be that great either. And I'll say that right now, September 16th, 2024.
Be the number 2 this week?
Yes.
You'll be bringing another quarterback?
Not right now.
Do you plan on making any other adjustments to the roster?
Probably. I think it's every single week we're evaluating our roster. We're challenging all spots. We're looking to just be as competitive as possible, and that's the part that we owe, again, to everybody, is to really continue to evaluate who we have out there and who can help us.
Does the overall offensive scheme change a little bit with Dalton at the helm, or is he going in to implement what y'all have been trying to do?
Yeah, it's going to be our system. Yep.
Understanding you don't want to get too deep into the weeds on the decision, but was there something, kind of an overriding factor, even the nature in which you guys lost the first 2 games? Was there something really that drove this more than any other factor?
I'm not going to get into specifics of it, Joe. I just, after watching it and taking all the information, and we feel like Andy gives us our best chance to win.
Is 2 weeks a large enough sample size to make this type of decision?
Honestly, the focus right now for me is to make sure we're getting Andy ready to go. So I don't want to get into the whole amount of time and all that.
Did you take this job in part because of the opportunity to work with Bryce, and what does it mean that now 2 weeks into it, that's not going to be a thing?
I took this job because it's a dream. It's a dream to be able to lead men, to face these kind of challenges, to make the decisions that give us our best chance to win. And so that's the heart and soul of this thing, So, and I'm still there pushing. I'm going to compete every single day just to continue to help our team take the next step.
Again, that is Dave Canales sidestepping the question and telling you that he is here to win games. He's not here to win games with Bryce. I think that tells you everything you need to know about this Carolina Panthers team moving forwards, about how our head coach must have felt last year being saddled with Bryce and not being able to bench him, and then of course all the dysfunction, that has happened since then. We are in a dumpster fire of a problem, and I hope that starting Andy is the solution, but at the same time, I hate to say this, but maybe we should have had a little bit more faith in Bryce, and we should have built offensive line to keep him safe, and then let him try to elevate the talent around him. Now, obviously, I posted the clip where 99.9 The Fan and Dennis Cox, Chris Lee, they're amazing. Make sure you go follow them. Talked about him being tofu. He's very bland. It doesn't really elevate the dish. He just takes on the flavor of others around him. If that's the case, I think last year could have gone a lot more effectively if we had, again, really worked on that offensive line and then continued to pound the rock the right way. But instead, we were trying to really make Bryce as a square peg fit into a circular hole. So as we move forward, we need to make the best football decision, not the best football decision for Bryce, not the best football decision for Chuba, for Deontay, for anybody else. The best football decision for the Carolina Panthers organization, period.
How do you look at this? I mean, is it a Bryce failure? You think it's a failure on your part? How do you look at this?
I just have to gather information, and I have to be very objective about what I'm looking at and where we can go as a team. And so we feel like Andy gives us our best chance going forward.
I know you don't want to get into the conversation with Brant and Dan, but how empowered did you feel to make this decision with the people that you made those decisions with?
This is my decision. This is our football team. This is trying to win on a weekly basis. And while it's my decision, I gather information from the people that are critical to making these kind of decisions. But this is something that I felt like gives us our chance to take a step forward in our play style and to be able to compete this week against a really good Raiders team.
Was it a hard decision for you to make?
Absolutely. Absolutely. Every roster move we've made has been a really difficult decision, but it comes with a lot of thought, a lot of conversations, and a lot of film study. It always comes back to the football. And so that's how the decision was made.
There's a hope that, maybe Bryce, sits back, watches, and learns, and then it pays off down the road just from learning. I know you said last week that there's nothing like game experience, but in some ways maybe is it better for him to take a step back and reassess and watch from and maybe learn that way.
I certainly hope he just shows up every day, works hard, focuses on his job, and continues to push himself.
Is this a weekly decision you're going to have to make, or is Andy the starter just moving forward?
I don't want to get into timelines. I just know Andy gives us our best chance to win right now. His resume speaks for itself. He's an experienced player. He's got a lot of football in his history. So I'm excited for Andy with this opportunity, and I believe he gives us our best chance to win this week.
Is he healthy? I know he had some stuff in preseason.
Andy Dalton's our quarterback right now, so going into this week, we feel great about him.
So interesting that he doesn't address the injury concerns and the reason why we didn't play him in preseason to put him in there. So he would rather have an injured Andy Dalton than a healthy Bryce Young. Man, that should tell you everything.
How do you think the offensive line has performed over the past 2 weeks when you watch that tape and you gather that information?
Yeah, I thought that we had growth in a lot of areas, offensive line from 1 week to the next, just handling the protections, moving the line of scrimmage. I thought we established a new line of scrimmage. We had some great runs in the game, 65% run efficiency on the day, which was fantastic. We saw, 8 3rd and 5 or less. That's playing on schedule. That's a place where we got to be able to take advantage of. And the offensive line is a huge part of that, so saw the guys working together. They got a bunch they got to clean up. As we still become our scheme and our concepts, there's still a lot of growth there, but definitely see the potential and the power inside.
Oh, so it's interesting that certain people, reporters in the Carolina fan base, said that it's a lazy take to say that the offensive line were struggling or that they weren't up to snuff. But yet here's the coach acknowledging just that. So I'm sorry. Just because you're a reporter for the team, just because you're a fan of the team, doesn't mean that, somebody criticizing a certain personnel group is not okay. This entire team deserves criticism. Everybody from top down. I really prefer most of the criticism to stay at the top with David Tepper, but hey, this is our coach acknowledging the offensive line needs a lot of improvement.
As you go into practice, obviously focusing on Andy as the starter, how do you make sure Bryce doesn't get kind of thrown to the wayside in practice and lost in the weeds?
Yeah, Andy's going to get the pertinent reps for our practices. He's going to be in there with the first group. We're going to ask him to step in the huddle and continue to push the ball forward as we grow into the offense I think we can become.
How can Bryce?
Do a couple more.
How can Bryce respond in the best possible way to these circumstances?
Yeah, just the standard of NFL football is show up, work hard, be focused, be engaged, do your job, give everything you have every day, pursuing your best and growing.
Yeah, but the issue lies that I don't think the team really trusts him at the quarterback position. He is not the savant. He's not the supercomputer that we thought. He is not able to get it done at the NFL level, and we've seen that from a lot of people. Now, obviously, if he's 6'5", it does change the equation. He's able to see over the offensive and defensive lines. He's not looking for holes. He doesn't have to step back in the pocket to give himself a better viewing angle of deep down the field. So there's a lot that goes into that. That's the reason why our backups are 6'2" and 6'5" in Jack Plummer and Andy Dalton. There's a reason why most backups aren't 5'10". So I think this is a failure of the organization as a whole. It wasn't a failure of Dave Canales. And of course, I don't believe it's a failure of Bryce. I don't think he ever had what it needed to be in the NFL unless he was in the right situation. Kind of like Brock Purdy and the 49ers. I think Bryce could do great in Minnesota with dynamic play catchers like Justin Jefferson and Jordan Addison. But they also have a stable organization and a good offensive coach that has a good track record with that team, whereas we don't have that. So we're constantly wanting to start this fire, into a raging inferno, but we can't even get the smallest of flickers to start.
2 early calls went against the Panthers. Do you have any comment on Horn's forced fumble and Johnson's fair catch interference?
The officials are great. They came over to the sideline, kind of explained what they saw, explained the situation, explained that there was, turnover plays get reviewed and all that. So it's like they had a lot of information. It was a fantastic crew of guys just coming over and kind of letting me know what was happening.
Clarify, you told the quarterbacks this morning, Dave.
Yes.
Dave, any injuries we should know about coming on Sunday?
Shy had a foot deal. Do I speak specifically about it? So he's got a foot injury that we're evaluating right now, and then nothing else really that that came up of significant.
What's
the last one?
What was that?
What's Andy bring that Bryce didn't?
I don't want to get into specifics of comparison. I just know Andy gives us our best chance to win this week. So we're going with Andy, and he'll get the lion's share of it, and I'm looking for great things from him.
Thanks, Coach.
Yep. Thank you.
So if you've been on this channel for a while, if you've checked out Roll Coverage and all of my press conferences that I've done, because again, Roll Coverage is the home of the press conference breakdown, you would know that Dave Canales normally comes out here and gives us information. This shut off this same generic answer to a bunch of different questions is not normally what Dave Canales does. He normally comes out there and really gives a ton of information on specific stuff without really divulging too much, to be honest. He does a lot of the flowery language around it, but he does it in a way that makes you feel like he's really updating you, even though he's really not. Now, I think the charisma of Dave Canales, the charisma of Brad Idzik, and obviously the charisma of Bryce Young is the reason why they're in these positions. Dave Canales cannot hold himself to Bryce Young because he did not pick Bryce Young. That's why Frank Reich was kind of indifferent to Bryce Young because he didn't pick him. So I think the next coach, whoever that is, if it's Dave Canales, then great. Let's go get the guy that he wants. If it's not Dave Canales and it's another head coach, let's go get the guy that he actually wants. Not the guy that Nicole Tepper wants, not the guy that David Tepper wants, the one that the head coach and the GM are going to build around for the next decade. But I'm not really sure who that is. I hope you do, and I hope you put it in the comments below right before you check out another breakdown right here on the channel. Otherwise, I hope you have a great rest of the day. I am your host, Nick. Peace.